Wanderer here, and welcome to Fighting 101, Stick Fighting Level 1. So this is just going to be a basic instructional course on my version of Filipino stick fighting, some of the basic strikes, some of the basic defenses that are transferable between stick or the sword. I'll show you now how this weapon, either one of these, can be used with the exact same martial art and be transferable back and forth between the two, and how the use of these two devices, either way, will prepare you for using improvised weapons and tools and sticks and things that might be close at hand in the event that you are attacked. So let's look at some of those potentially useful defensive items. Okay, so let's talk about improvised weapons versus tools versus actual weapons. And this is also to help you understand why stick fighting is so important, because you can utilize your skills as a stick fighter to be a sword fighter, or to utilize improvised weapons or even sticks found on the ground, or common items found around a campsite or around the outside of your house or any place you happen to be. One of my favorites, and honestly the reason I started learning the art of Filipino stick fighting, is because I saw a bar fight that was one guy against four guys, and he ended it really fast with half a pool cue. He just snapped a pool cue in half, and he used Filipino stick fighting skills to thump the snot out of these, I think, 4 or 5 guys that had him cornered in a pool hall, and it was pretty amazing. So from then on out, I decided that if I was going to work in bars and be as a musician around bars all the time, I better learn how to use a broken pool cue. So that started my journey. So let's talk about the differences here. So let's talk primarily at first about this setup. So on the left here is a bona fide shillelagh. It's a partial staff. I don't know. It's longer. This range is longer than your standard eskrima stick, which is the stick used for Filipino stick fighting. But this particular stick is actually the exact length, nearly the exact usable length of the Navy cutlass. So I favor this longer stick versus the shorter stick, which is more along the lines of these 4 items here. So the oldest going back weapon here is the Roman short sword, or the gladius. So that weapon can be used in Filipino stick fighting. It's a little heavy, as is the axe. But, you know, the basic camp axe, all of the techniques, the stick fighting techniques, can be moved over to those heavier, slower weapons. But then you got things here like this lighter weight metal camp shovel, which all of my Filipino stick fighting skills would translate to that. And also here the classic trekking pole broken in half, or sized down, as it were. So you could utilize a stick found on the ground, a pool cue, a table leg, to utilize these skills. And ultimately, there's very little difference in this art between fighting with a sword and fighting with a stick. So you learn with a stick, and when you stop smacking yourself accidentally with the stick, then you can, get upgraded to the sword. My particular choice in sword is the 1917 Navy cutlass. So my sword fighting technique is going to be a combination of the 1917 Marine Corps Navy cutlass kata, basically the training method used to train Marines in 1917, when this weapon was originally issued. Of course, the cutlass had been around since the days of the old wooden sailing ships, but it was finally retired in its last incarnation in America in 1917. But this weapon continued to be seen on Navy ships and with Marines on well through into Korea. So that's my particular weapon of choice. If I had to pick a knife to fight with, that'd be the one, right? But I could definitely do some damage with any of these, including right down to the little broken trek pole. I will work you over and make you call for your mommy. And that's just the nature of stick fighting. It's really an incredible martial art. Just a quick history on it. The Filipino nation was occupied by Spanish, by Americans, and by Japanese. And at various different stages in their occupied history, they were denied the use of knives or swords. Those were seen as arms, and so tools like machetes and things were not really allowed for them to have. And so they kept their martial art alive by translating it to stick fighting. And so they could carry a stick and they could fight with a stick and not a blade. And so, but the thing is that it was, the stick fighting is designed to be seamlessly transferred over to blade fighting. So I'll demonstrate some things here in the video and let you see these weapons, various weapons at work, their pluses and minuses, and how one set of basic skills can really allow you to defend yourself with any item like this or any item similar to this, including even in some instances, to some degree, a regular knife or even a small pocket knife. So what we're going to show you now are some basic moves of this art form that I've created combining Filipino stick fighting and the 1917 Saber as taught by the Marines of that time. So this is some old school fighting techniques, hundreds of years old, but they're still effective today. And it's an important part of anyone's fighting ability is to know how to use these improvised weapons. I'm going to start with the defensive version. Now you'll notice that I'm holding the stick kind of in an interesting way. I'm holding it like this with the grip open, like that, okay? Resting on my bicep. The reason being is that from here out, theoretically, this is a blade. So every method I'm going to show you is going to protect you from this imaginary cutting surface that would normally be found. So I'm not just going to hit you and then haphazardly turn the stick for another return. I've got to keep this imaginary line lined up. So when I transfer this over to swords, like this one, okay, then you won't be slicing yourself to smithereens. So this is the opening. It's defensive, and it can come from, let's say, the use of a cane or a walking stick. It was a little longer, okay? But you can bring that stick right up from the down position up to the balance position for the strike or for the defense. I'll teach defensive moves in another video, but let's start with the first position and the #1 strike, okay? This is, I'm being charged and I don't like it, okay? So it starts, if you know what an atlatl is, an atlatl? I don't know. It's an ancient spear throwing device. And what makes it so effective is that it adds another joint to your arm. Okay, so instead of just using your arm to fling the spear, you've got another device that you use to fling the spear off of. So you end up throwing the spear with twice the power. That's kind of the same ideology behind using the wrist, the spin of the stick, the elbow, and the shoulder all together into one devastating high-speed strike. Okay? So it comes from this position here, which can be defensive, right? But it can also set you up for an extended strike if you want to switch hands from the weak position, weak side forward. I can either hit you with this one, right? Or I can pass it off to this one and reach out and get you a few feet closer, as you can see. So, back to position 1. You're going to start with this, resting on the back of your arm, your hand lined up here with the imaginary line running this way. Sorry, I'm kind of on a hillside back here. And you're going to basically launch it like that. And when you're going to end with a full grip like this. You don't have to use the finger. You can keep the grip closed like that. I always use the finger because, well, it gives me a little bit more, with stick fighting, helps me keep that edge straight. Right? And it also works with swords. Your hand just goes alongside the guard. Okay? So, back to this position 1. You start here, and you're just going to boom like Babe Ruth. Right? People ask me, Sage, why do you keep your hand up here like this? Because it's guarding my body and my face from strikes or from pummels. Right? But it's also staying out of the way of this, which is actually really a blade if you use your imagination. Right? So, this is position 1. This defensive strike. Okay, notice that it's a whole body motion. I twist the hips, I spin from the hips, it comes out like this, and then the spin starts, and I get a maximum reach without overcommitting. I'm still balanced. Right? So just forward motion, boom. Okay? So that is strike number 1. We're going to do this kind of overhand. I've been showing you crossways. But that's all of the angles of attack. Imagine a clock, okay, a giant clock. So you're going to start with a 12 o'clock attack straight over the top. That's going to go over their defenses, pop them in the top of the head, right? Then you just start slicing that pie all the way around. Each one. When you get to the halfway mark here, you're gonna roll your arm back and come up from the bottom. So we taught you position one. Whew, it translates to this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay? Right? Now, from here, we got to go to an understrike. So now, position one, understrike. We're going to come up like this, and we're just going to come under like that. Almost like a cricket batter. Come down like this, up like that, and follow through. Sorry. But yeah, so we're going to come from here, and we're just going to go under, just like that, with the follow through. Full arcing strikes, okay? So starting here, we're going to use this underturn to create the other half of this semicircle. All right, so over the top, over the top, over the top. Now underneath, 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 underneath. Now we've got half the spectrum. To finish the other side, we're here. We're going to come up, back to position one. Okay, so we've been in position one, which is weak side forward, and we worked this whole spectrum, the whole right side, with this weak side forward. Now the beauty of this is that I can also, with an overhand strike and an arch of my back, work the other side all the way around in the same fashion I did this. So that is possible without shifting feet. But ideally, you want to work your right side with your left foot forward, and then you're going to want to work the right side with your strong side forward. So now we're going to start with the overhand, and we're going to work the other half. Step back there. Sorry, I'm on a hill. So, over the top, 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 underturn, 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 underturn. So, all of it together kind of looks like this. Over the top, around the clock, all the way around the clock, all the way around the clock, undercut, 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 over the top, over the top, over the top. All the way around every angle of attack in a circle by switching your feet. Now you don't have to switch your feet. You can mix it up. You can switch your feet or not switch your feet. That's why this box step is the important part of footwork. Step back a little bit. This box step, like this, like this, like this. If you go to fist fight somebody and they start doing this to you, you should run away unless you're a black belt or higher. I'm just telling you. If they start doing this with feints and moves, like they got stiff-legged and they're turning like this, you probably got a fighter on your hands. So footwork is very important. All right. So that's the basic skills of the 360. In a future video, I'm going to show you defensive moves. Those come from the Navy Cutlass, the 1917 Navy Cutlass. This one is by Condor. Same methods for attack, but with the defensive Saber, you have defensive positions as well. Defense, 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 defense. So you have what I call the H of defenses with the Saber, which is different than stick fighting defenses. When you see the two together, it's a very effective method of self-defense with any stick, any sword, half a pool cue, any of that.